Welcome, everyone. I am Melissa Fagan, and I'm your host for today's Roundtable webinar, a monthly virtual seminar series. Our intention is to host targeted, inclusive, and informed conversations that match scientific advances and management needs. The webinars are designed for contribution, not consumption, so each seminar invites a diverse range of researchers, managers, and other professionals to have conversations around critical topics. The point today is to build connectivity between all of us and to increase our collective competency for decision making. As a reflection of that intent, the panelists have been given about 25 minutes total to provide introductory remarks, allowing for a full 30 minutes of discussion. This is all about us, the collective, giving us a place to ask the clumsy questions and to practice the bravery and humility necessary for building the future we want. So as we go through the presentations today, I encourage you to drop any questions you have into the chat, and during the conversation part, I will guide us through those questions and we'll hear some great answers from our speakers. Our webinars are recorded and past seminars are available on the CRC website and YouTube channel. And we'd like to start off by asking the topic of why now and why these speakers. Today, we're focusing on swimmable urban waterways. And urban areas are gathering places, making them vibrant centers of cultural and innovation. We're in the midst of outdoor recreation season, and people and communities across the watershed are looking to water-based activities like fishing and swimming to beat the summer heat. Swimmable urban waterways are vital to the livability of cities and communities as shared civic places that promote the health of people, physically, mentally, and spiritually, and the health of our environment. Urban swimming culture is a unique expression of life in cities and communities, reflecting the distinct interplay of sports, recreation, and tourism in each given place, as well as natural and cultural heritage. All communities have a right to healthy waterways, though in many places, water quality and limited access can make this a challenge. Today, many organizations like the two we are going to hear from are working towards making fishable and swimmable urban waterways a reality. So it's my pleasure to introduce our two speakers for today. We have Allison Blood from the Baltimore Harbor Waterfront Partnership and Dean Nauyaks, the Potomac River Keeper. While both are working towards a shared vision of swimmable waterways, each play a unique role in how that vision is achieved that balances access opportunities for communities with keeping water quality in safe ranges so that it can be accessed. I'm really looking forward to learning more about that shared vision that it takes and what it takes to reach it through today's conversation. So speakers, I'm going to turn my camera off and I will gently let you know if we bump up against the time limit when I come back on camera. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Allison, to get us started.
All right, thank you. All right. So I am Allison Blood. I'm the Senior Manager for Environmental Projects and Advocacy at the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore. And I would love to start a presentation today with some excitement around swimming in the Baltimore Harbor. This video may not come across quite as well as we'd like, but you can hear the sound, which shows the enthusiasm. And I really just wanted to show how many people came out and were excited for our first swim in Baltimore last summer in 2024.
Let's go! 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So this was Harbor Splash. We had 150 swimmers come out last June and plunge in the Baltimore Harbor. We sold out in 10 minutes, which was really exciting. So just there's so much enthusiasm and energy and excitement about being able to swim in the Baltimore Harbor, and I want to share that with you all today, kind of how Waterfront Partnership with our partners got there and what the future looks like. And I want to start by talking about, let's see here. The Swimmable Cities Summit, which the inaugural Swimmable Cities Summit was held in Rotterdam in the Netherlands this June, and our vice president was able to attend. And so we have this renewed energy behind swimming in the Baltimore Harbor because we know all these places that are swimming in their urban waterways, and Baltimore has so fewer obstacles that these places have. So we're really excited to keep pushing forward with opportunities to swim and with water recreation. And I think Swimmable Cities, the Alliance, which is just the gathering of all of these cities who are either trying to have swimmable urban waterways or are successful in swimmable urban waterways, come together and share ideas and expertise. And they have these guiding principles, which I think are very succinct in saying why urban swimming is necessary, why swimmable urban waterways are it's the why. It's the why. The foundational values are the right to swim. Everyone deserves the right to access their waterways. One health and many swimmers. So it's important that our urban waterways are healthy for us as people, but also for the animals that call it home and how that can go hand in hand. Urban swimming culture creates an even tighter knit community in your city along the water. And water is sacred, and we should treat it that way. I encourage you all to check out the Swimmable Cities website. It has great information and moving the movement. So why is Baltimore ready to be a swimmable city? We have come a long way. In 2010 was the formation of the Healthy Harbor Initiative. So Waterfront Partnership, the organization that I work with, is a business improvement district. It was formed in 2005, and it works on providing enhanced services to the neighborhoods around the Inner Harbor, specifically focusing on cleaning and greening and hospitality. And so in 2010, we decided that stewardship needed to be reflected on the harbor as well, which was kind of just written off as a polluted body of water that it's too far gone, no one can do anything about it. But when the Healthy Harbor Initiative was formed in 2010, we also formed a Healthy Harbor Steering Committee and included partners who could really advance the mission of cleaning up the harbor, creating a swimmable and fishable Baltimore Harbor. And so the steering committee consists of DPW, other local agencies, as well as research institutions, environmental nonprofits, and the private sector, all of which play a huge role in advancing the water quality of the harbor. And so what did the harbor look like in 2010? Covered in trash, sewer overflows all the time, and created an inhospitable environment for wildlife in the harbor. And how has that improved in the last 15 years? We have seen significant improvements in bacteria levels in the Baltimore Harbor, around an annual average of 35% improvement. And that can be attributed in large part to the renovation projects of our sewer infrastructure and wastewater treatment facilities, specifically the Headworks project, which is over $1 billion project to reduce sewer overflows into our waterways. And that has led to recreational water quality results that look like this. So now I'm going to take a slight detour into our water quality monitoring program. And this is showing our 2024 recreational health scores. So in 3 sites in the Inner Harbor, the water samples were meeting swimming beach standards around 80% of the time. And these times that they were failing, there was rain in the last 48 hours. So we were really excited to see the consistency and predictability of when bacteria in the harbor would exceed the thresholds for swimming beaches. So we're measuring fecal indicator bacteria. A little more on our recreational water quality monitoring program. We collect 5 samples at 5 sites, five days a week in the harbor, May through September. So we try to cover the recreational season. This is our 3rd season doing that. So every day we have someone out there collecting samples and taking them to a lab in the inner harbor. It has been foundational in our ability to move towards up the public swim, knowing that we have this information. We post our results the next day on our website, waterfrontpartnership.org, on our water quality monitoring page. We also have it on our Baltimore Blueway page, which I'll talk about the Baltimore Blueway in just a little bit. But we want to provide the public with information. We know that the harbor is a dynamic system, and we feel we want to make sure that everyone who wants to recreate in the harbor has the most amount of information that they can for making a decision for themselves. We know recreating in natural waters is not zero risk anywhere you are. So we want to provide that information to the public. And this goes into kind of what we're seeing. So at the top, we have kind of amount of rain. How long the blue line is indicates how much rain there was. And along the bottom, green check means it passed, and exclamation point means that it exceeded the threshold. So you can see when we have rain, it failed. This is at one site. We get some failures, we get some exceedances. And then sometimes if you look to the right side, you can see that sometimes it rains and it does not impact water quality or bacteria levels in the harbor. And so we like to use the term conditionally safe. I don't know that we'll ever get to a point where we will have zero failing days, but I think that we are getting closer and closer to being able to say these are the days where it's safest to swim. And what we learned from the Swimmable Cities Summit is that's what all of these places that have regular swimming already in place, they deal with the exact same thing. So we want to figure out how to meet the conditions and create safe conditions where we're at, while continuing to improve water quality. So now back to the improvements of the harbor. Ecosystem health scores are also improving, and we can see when we have some dips in those scores, what's going on. We know the Patapsco wastewater treatment plant really impacted ecosystem health in the harbor, but we can see that it's rebounding. We also can see how rain impacts ecosystem health scores. And then the trash. We've seen significant reductions in trash in the harbor thanks to plastic pollution reduction, policy change. We've seen 90% reduction in styrofoam thanks to the statewide ban, and we've seen a 72% reduction in plastic bags that come down our waterways, specifically at Mr. Trashwell, the Jones Falls River, reduction in 72% when Baltimore City banned bags first, and then the county, and we saw a huge reduction when the county banned the bags because the Jones Falls has a huge watershed. We have 4 trash wheels that are in the Baltimore Harbor right now, and we use the data collected from the trash intercepted to help inform these policies and policy changes. And I don't have any hard numbers for you, but anecdotally, there is so much life coming back to the harbor. We have river otters, we have cow-nosed rays, we have charters from the Eastern Shore coming into Baltimore Harbor to catch rockfish, schools of fish everywhere, blue crabs everywhere, water clarity improving. So people are seeing the life coming back to the harbor. And on top of this, we grow oysters every year in the harbor to be transplanted to the Fort Carroll Oyster Reef Sanctuary. We're going to be growing 800,000 spat this season to be transplanted there. So all along, we are creating educational opportunities for people to build connection to the harbor as it connects to the bay, and become stewards of the Baltimore Harbor to learn what's possible here. So we aren't the only ones trying to swim in the Baltimore Harbor. We also have an amazing Baltimorean, Katie Pumphrey, who is an ultramarathon swimmer and artist who swam from the Chesapeake Bay Bridge to Harbor Place, a 24-mile swim, celebrating the city of Baltimore, celebrating the potential of water recreation. And Katie knows what it's like to swim in urban waterways. She's swam the English Channel. She's actually on her third attempt this week. She's swam the Catalina Channel 2 times, has circumnavigated Manhattan 2 times. She knows, she knows how to talk about urban water and what to expect and how to present the reality of what you have to present the reality of swimming in urban waterways. And our harbor splash went so well, but I think the main takeaway was it's fun. We should be able to swim in this water that we walk along, that we walk past, that we see, that maybe we boat on. We should be able to just jump in if it's a hot day and we want to cool off. And that was the overwhelming feeling that participants had, harbor splash. Leading up to the event, we were checking water quality every single day. We were blessed with no rain. And so that's another thing. We have to be flexible when talking about water recreation because we can't control the weather. But we are getting a better idea of what happens when we do get different types of weather events. So we were lucky enough to have 7 days of no rain before Harbor Splash in 2024. We have rescheduled Harbor Splash for this Saturday because we did have rain before our event, which was scheduled in June of this year. So we are crossing our fingers that the weather holds off, but it's just part of the reality of urban swimming is you just have to know, you have to be aware of what's going on with the weather. And that's all part of the communication to the public about recreating in the harbor. And we're not just talking about swimming. Waterfront Partnership developed the Baltimore Blueway Plan in 2023 to establish water trails and access points to create more access, free public access to the water. We have installed a new kayak launch in Fells Point. That was actually the one that we all jumped off of. And we have an inner harbor kayak launch coming at the beginning in spring of 2026. We're really excited about that, working on projects at Hull Street at Tide Point and Fort McHenry for visitors to come to the fort by water, and really just working on connecting the entire waterway because there's so many amazing things to see, from the city skyline to historic ships to the wetlands. There's lots of things to see, and we want to get people out on the water any way that they would like to enjoy it. And we've hosted the Baltimore Flotilla for 7 years now, where we have 300 paddlers at least who get out on the water and paddle for clean water and water access. These are just our launches, and I'm going to get to the end now. I see we're getting close to time. So this is the Inner Harbor Kayak launch that we're installing for the public. And so what's next for Waterfront Partnership is a feasibility study to identify a swim spot. Where can we consistently recreate? Is that possible, or do we need to look to a different format for our swims? We also are looking to get Baltimore City to sign on to the Swimmable Cities Charter, which I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, and have ownership in the running swim events and the water quality monitoring for public health. All right, and these are just some examples to look forward to as we hope to have a swim site in Baltimore in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. And Dean, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay, just making sure they work. Yep. So my name is Dean X. I'm the Potomac River Keeper. I work for Potomac River Keeper Network. There's my email if you need to get a hold of me. We protect the public's right to clean water. Our mission is to eliminate sources of pollution. So we do a lot of clean water enforcement. I'll talk some about that. Big shout out to Alice Volpitta, the Baltimore Harbor Waterkeeper, who's helped work on fixing a lot of those sewage issues in the Baltimore Harbor. But this is what we do. is eliminate sources of pollution to protect the public's use and enjoyment of our waterways, right? So, we do a water quality monitoring program as well. We have about over 40 sites that we sample throughout the whole watershed. We have 2 labs, actually 3, that we operate. And basically, we have 3 river keepers that manage. I'm based in DC. We have one way up in the upper Potomac, Williamsport, and then we have a Shenandoah River keeper. And we do our own investigations. We use drones. We have volunteer pilots. We do water quality monitoring. And like I said, a lot of this is all building cases. We leverage about $2 million a year in free legal service for the river that we use to hold polluters accountable. And then there's always ways that we're trying to engage people, like through our paddle trips called River Palooza. We have some great ones coming up in August and September. I'll talk a little about the but the Potomac's about 14,000 square miles, so it's a really big watershed. And other than the Anacostia River, which has an Anacostia River keeper separate from our organization, we cover this entire thing, and it's a lot of work. And if you've never been to this amazing watershed, we have over 2,000 dolphins in the lower Potomac. These are some of our snorkel trips that we offer up on the Shenandoah. Obviously, fishing, recreation. This river supplies drinking water to over 5 million people. It's the lifeblood of the region, right? And so it's just really important. These are some of our major campaigns. I'm not going to get into a lot, but I mentioned the Clean Water Act enforcement, like fixing sewage plants and holding DC tried to wiggle out of bacteria requirements for making the Potomac swimmable again. And we had to actually take that to court, go to the EPA, sue the EPA to force them to do that. We have a lot of them. I'm going to focus primarily on our Swimmable Potomac campaign. But again, you cannot have a swimmable river or water body if you're not fixing and eliminating the sources of pollution that are causing harm and preventing people's enjoyment of that waterway. So one of our big campaigns that we're not leading, but we're very much part of, as is Allison, is our Trash Free Potomac campaign. There's a Maryland bottle bill that's likely going to hopefully pass this year or in 2026. We hope that you all support that. There's also a DC bottle bill that's working on, and then Virginia is likely going to start moving forward, advancing these bottle bills. Major importance for cleaning plastic pollution. We've come a long way, the Potomac, just like the Baltimore Harbor, in making strides in water quality improvements. But the reality is there are some emerging issues like PFAS contamination, microplastics, which are still a major threat and a growing threat to water quality and fishability and our waterways. So this Swimmable Potomac campaign, when I came here in 2015, I was stunned that DC was basically the only city in America that it's illegal to swim because of its sewage pollution. They banned swimming back over 52 years ago. And but the river, there used to be, if you all know where the tidal basin is or the Jefferson Memorial, there used to be 20,000 people a day that used to swim there on the weekends in the summer. And there used to be Arlington Beach, where the 14th Street Bridge is now. Thousands of people would swim and recreate in this river 100 years ago. And a lot of it's been banned because of pollution and the laws. And like I said, we've been monitoring now for the past 5 years. This is one of our labs, our most important lab. This was a vessel that was donated to us by Admiral Paul Reason of the Navy. It was custom built. We now have a level 3 certified lab on this research vessel at National Harbor. And this is where all our volunteers bring our samples every week. But bottom line is, part of our goals for our Swim Potomac campaign is just making it accessible for people to swim. We provide weekly updates on an app called Swim Guide. It's downloadable. We've had over 100,000 DMV residents in the last couple of years just go to this to find out conditions of the river, when it's safe to use it, when it's not. We're providing this free public service, right? We're also fixing these combined sewer systems, both in DC and Alexandria. Alexandria, we got legislation passed in that'll be fixed by 2026. And DC's will be fixed by 2030. So this river is going to be cleaner than it is today. And the 2030 deadline falls right in with the Swimmable Cities initiative that Allison was talking about. We're very much supportive. We're trying to, this is kind of a tale of two cities. We don't have support from our mayor. We don't have about lifting the swim ban. We don't have a lot of political support. Meanwhile, like Chicago and Baltimore, they're having these swim events and splash events, and they're celebrating cleaning up our waterways. And that's something that my organization is very much pushing for. These are some of the averages. We can get in the weeds on that, but these are a lot of most of our sampling sites that we have in the Potomac River, about 30 that I manage, and then we have some in the Upper Potomac. I don't need to get into that, but really a big part of what we do is public engagement. And we have about 650 volunteers last year get involved with our organization through our river cleanups, our Trash Free Potomac campaign, our water quality monitoring program. We have about 100 trained volunteers. It's all volunteer run, including our lab manager, and all our labs are all run by volunteers. And we do have a volunteer coordinator, but it's just an extraordinary amount of work that goes into it. And I'm just always so amazed how many people really care about the river and want to see success of the river. And I was talking to Allison yesterday. 1/4 of DC's economic development is waterfront revitalization on the wharf, the southeast waterfront, the Anacostia. So people are coming back to the river. There's investments being made in the river. There's more recreation. There's more access. And yet it's still illegal to swim in DC. And so this is a really important campaign for us because the public does have a right to swim. It's just really frustrating that, we have just kind of a leadership that isn't really seeing the vision of bringing people back. And one of the things I think is really important, that the only way that people get on the river and are allowed to get in the river is if they're attached to a vessel somehow. So meaning if you're on a boat being pulled by a tube and you have a PFD on, you can get thrown off into the river. Or if you're doing a stand-up paddleboard and kayaking, you roll over. That's legitimate, that's legal. But the reality is that it prevents a lot of people, particularly people of color, from accessing the river. You have to have a boat. You have to have access to a marina or be able to pay or rent some type of kayak or stand-up paddleboard. And there's a lot of people that can't afford that, and they're not privileged enough to have access to that. So to me, opening this river for swimming and providing access points for people to wade and gather in the river is really just opening this up to everybody, right? And right now it's limited because of the swim ban, and we're trying to get our political leaders to see past that, right? So we're working hard every day to restore the nation's river. Again, it's the lifeblood of our region, and we just, this is our website. If you ever want to check out some of our more robust campaigns, like we're doing a lot of work on PFAS, eliminating those sources. And that's really what we do, is target sources of pollution. We have basically brought lawsuits or enforcement actions against almost every single failing sewage plant in the entire river basin. And then we keep finding more, we keep fixing those. But we've been doing this now for 25 straight years, and we can see the progress. This river, President Johnson declared that the river was a national disgrace in 1965 when it had mats of algae blooms and all this other pollution. But he also said it should be a model for recreation, and we're heading that direction. And I'm very proud of the work that we do. One of the things, our campaigns is coal ash, right? We passed legislation in Maryland last year. We passed in 2019 in Virginia, making Dominion clean up 28 million tons of coal ash. And that's really important for the health of the river. But I think the reality is that the thing that people will remember us most by is not like cleaning up toxic coal ash, but rather we helped to make this river swimmable again, right? We are returning people back to this river. And that's really the goal of our organization. So if you're in the DC area, we'd love to get you involved in the work that we do. But other than that, I'm just happy to take questions and then open it up for Q&A. And thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Dean. And to all of our attendees, if you do have questions, feel free to add them to the chat. We had a great list of questions submitted ahead of time, so I'll get things kicked off a bit. One of the big themes that came from a number of our registrants was just figuring out what defines a safe water body. So as you're looking over the data, what are the pollutants that are most concerning that would prevent a water body from becoming swimmable?
Go ahead, Alice.
You might be better to answer that question because we focus on recreational water quality monitoring. Blue
Mm.
Water Baltimore, another organization in the area, monitors other ecosystem health indicators. Um, and we are in talks with MDE, making sure if there's anything else that's on the harbor is not impaired for anything else that we should be monitoring for recreation. But my knowledge of anything else is probably I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just for our
Yeah,
purposes, bacteria is what we're looking for
yeah,
human health.
for us too. I mean,
Yeah.
Mhm.
E. coli and then downriver enterococcus, but in saltwater. But we're freshwater, so we focus on E. coli. That's the most important thing, right? Is making sure that the bacteria levels are safe enough and meet those standards for human contact. And that's what we test for. That's what we report out. So we collect samples on Wednesday. We analyze them on Thursday. We report that information out by Friday morning. So people have that data going into the weekend. They can just look at Swim Guide. And it's a simple red, green pass fail. And Swim Guide, y'all, it monitors 8,000 beaches and swimming locations all around the world. So anywhere you are in the world, you should have Swim Guide downloaded on your phone, and we should figure out a way to get your data through the Baltimore Harbor Keeper uploaded, Allison, so that way more people have access to it. But I would just say that, and then I think one thing I would suggest for Allison, and one thing we need, and the reason why DC will not lift the swim ban is because they don't have an adequate public notification system. We are the only ones providing public notification. So I think if you're going to have a robust bacteria monitoring program, you also need a really good public notification system. If you look at like San Diego and other places around the country, they have that in place. And that's the one thing that DOEE, the agency in DC, is striving to do, but there's not money in the budget to do it at this point.
Great, thank you. That was sort of the next theme that we heard was how do you figure out if your local waterway is swimmable? And Dean, you just shared that great resource, Swim Guide, which we'll be sure to send out. And it seems like both of your organizations offer similar information to those local communities. Are there similar organizations across some of the major water bodies doing similar things and offering that communication, or is it more unique and really Swim Guide is sort of your one-stop shopping to that available info?
Dean, you might have a better perspective on other areas, but I think yeah, I'm not sure. I think that the people are collecting bacteria samples or fecal indicator bacteria samples, and so you should be able to find that wherever you are. If it's presented to the public, that's another thing, and if it's presented as, regulatory for like the city, Baltimore City does collect these types of samples too, but they're targeting outfalls. So we're targeting places where people will swim. So the information doesn't always line up for what you're looking for, but wherever you are, I imagine you can find bacteria data.
Yeah, we do too. We sample where people are accessing the river and waterways. But that's the beauty of Swim Guide, at least that it's wherever you are, you can pull it up. And if there's any data available, then it should be found through Swim Guide. Obviously we need people to populate that, but there are other water keepers that are using Swim Guide throughout the Chesapeake region. I know that for sure. So like Chester River, folks out on the Eastern Shore, they're using Swim Guide. And so that's just a very important tool, I think. I mean, there are other places, as Allison said, but that has always been my problem is that it's hard for people to find. And most people, as you know, like they're going out on a Friday and they just want to know real quickly, is it safe for me to go in that water body? And I think that's why I really like Swim Guide rather than try to find a website or something.
Great.
And I'll just add just about our frequency of water monitoring. That's why we went to 5 days a week, because you're not only having a lag in the day you collected samples, but also it takes time to process, limited capacity of where each. So there's a lot of time in between when a sample is taken and when that information is provided. So we're like the day before, so we're still not telling you that day, but by sampling every day and having this great data set, then we can, then start to look back and see patterns and that kind of thing.
That's incredible. We do once a week near the weekend but yeah, we
Mhm.
would love to do daily if that was possible.
Mhm. And there was a question in the chat Allison, a follow-up to some of your comments that where you said you mentioned that you monitored for fecal coliform, but are you also monitoring for E. coli, which is more closely connected to human health concerns?
We are monitoring for Enterococcus because we're in marine environment.
Okay.
Saltwater. We do E. coli in the freshwater, but Enterococcus downriver at our Colonial Beach lab where it's salt.
Great, thank you. And another comment from the chat about just how the swim events are very cool. It's nice to see them, becoming more frequent. Have you heard of any instances of illness as a result of them that might be a challenge if you have, promotion for future events or anything like that?
No, not a single one. I've been in many, many times as well, and no problems.
And that's why the testing is so very important. As you saw her data leading up to the event, everything was pass, and that's really, really important leading up to an event like that.
And another thing that came out of the Swimmable Cities Summit is that learning what other countries' thresholds are and how they're monitoring for public health, and their thresholds are very high. So we are very conservative. Well, there's a lot of reasons why our thresholds where they are, but in the comparison with other countries, we are very conservative in what our bacteria thresholds are for water recreation.
Yeah, great. And then question for you, Dean. There's a lot of interest in sort of the hesitancy of DC for opening up these waterways for swimming. And one person is asking, is it potential the fact that there wouldn't be, lifeguarded areas for swimming that could be contributed, or have you seen that concern pop up in other jurisdictions, and how have they addressed that?
DC is unique. One of the problems is that there's tons of national park land almost on every part of the water body. So there's actually a federal law that prohibits wading into the river from national park land. So like that ban needs to be lifted. DC also has its own swim ban in place. One of the things that I think that DOE wants to do is, in addition to daily sampling, they want to do it at least 3 pilot sites where people are most likely to recreate, to just start getting the program off the ground, but they don't have the funding for it. So I think that that's really, really important. We did get a law passed under the previous Democratic Congress with Representative Holmes Norton that directed funding to the Army Corps of Engineers to identify swimming and wading locations in DC. But unfortunately, nobody in DC is pushing them to do it. So the Army Corps is sitting on this pot of money. They're not doing this. Is part of my frustration is like, I feel like we're the only ones that's trying to drive this initiative to get DC to start thinking about past 2030 when all these combined sewer systems are going to be fixed, and start thinking about a day when the river will be swimmable again. It already is, in my opinion, but it's going to be even cleaner by 2030. So what is that going to look like? And DC's unfortunately not thinking along those levels. And, so we need more help, clearly. And we need a partnership like what Allison has helped create, like the wharf. We tried to do a swim event there. They just wanted no part of it, like a jump in. We wanted a little splash event just like you had. They just did not want it in the wharf in the channel. And that's where water quality is safe enough 85% of the time based on 6 years of data now. And they just won't do it, So we have a spot up in Georgetown. We're going to just keep trying to push and keep trying to make this a reality. But I think the work that groups like Allison and others are doing in Chicago, hopefully it will inspire in the Swimmable Cities Initiative, DC, to start thinking a little bit more down the road about making this river accessible for swimmers.
Great, thank you. Another question, what about algal blooms? Are those factored into any of your monitoring protocols? And then does that factor also into swimmability allowances?
For us in our swim events, I think, does the water look appealing to jump into is a big consideration for us, because we have this huge hurdle of public perception that we are trying to achieve. I keep mentioning the Swimmable Cities Summit and Rotterdam, but Rotterdam has so many places to swim. They have a wave pool and a canal, and it was completely green, and people were out there. So, there's kind of two things going on. I think if it's a harmful algae, then we certainly have to be considerate of that, but algae is going to happen. And so better understanding what that means for public health. I think that it doesn't always eliminate the opportunity for swimming if we see an algal bloom.
Yeah, we're not seeing harmful algal blooms or blue-green algae in the DC area, but we are getting 2 sondes donated to us through Xylem, and they will be monitoring for chlorophyll A, which is an indicator of blue-green algae. And so we're putting them up on various parts of the other rivers in the upper Potomac, as well as 2 up in the Shenandoah. The Shenandoah does have a lot of blue-green algae up on the North Branch, but because of animal feeding operations, cattle, poultry operations, but we're not seeing that down in this part of the Potomac. As you get further down, sometimes you will see them late summer. But there's not a lot of monitoring that's going on. We're trying to do more to identify chlorophyll A levels.
Mm-hmm.
And we do have regular monitoring for harmful algae here at IMET through the University of Maryland and Center for Environmental Science.
Great. And this is an interesting one. And Allison, I think you and Dean will be able to speak to it. How has the lack of clean waterways in your perceptions impacted people's relationship with the water? And then I'll add on, have you started to see a shift as you've been creating these access opportunities?
Yeah, so I've been in Baltimore for almost 6 years. And so I came into it with water quality have improved, but perceptions not, and people thinking it's so crazy to ever imagine swimming in the harbor. But in these few years where swimming has become a reality, I would say in the last 3 years, especially, people are noticing so many things like clarity of water, lack of trash, amount of animals, and then just the talk of water recreation, more water sports outfitters are coming to the area, so they're just seeing people out on the water again. So I think it's the constant exposure to the possibility is really changing the tide. I think we are at the early adopter stage of people who want to jump in, but it's still a large group of people. And so Baltimore is a water town, and I think perceptions are changing. I think they will continue. I think we'll always have people who could never imagine in their lifetime getting into the Baltimore Harbor, but hopefully we can change their mind too.
Yeah, I agree with everything she has said. Same perceptions here, and I think the problem for us is when you still have a swim ban in place and it's based on sewage pollution, then that perception is going to continue to persist. But we're just trying, like Allison and her group, like trying to lift those perceptions or change those perceptions. And I think the best way is to start, doing these events just more and more and getting people in the water and showing people that it can be done, and that there are days where it's not going to be safe, to be honest, but there's opportunities and there's plenty of days for people to recreate. And what's crazy is then there's this whole other section of people that are boaters and river users that just use the river. They have no problems with it, right? They actually want this. I don't, it's just there's just differences in various, groups of people that have negative perceptions about the river still that date back decades.
Mm-hmm. And so if you are an urban resident and interested in your local waterways, but more in terms of becoming a steward and helping make them more accessible and swimmable, what are some ways that they could get involved?
Dean, do you want to start with your programming?
Well, I mean, obviously, we would love for you to be part of water quality monitoring program, but I think if you live in DC, I would love for you to start talking to your city council members about, we need to why is DC going to become a swimmable city once the combined sewer systems are fixed in 2030, right? We need to start planting that seed. I tried to put it into they're developing this long-term comprehensive plan for the city, but that's for like 2050, right? I put it in there, but we need to do this a lot sooner than that. So I think it's really just we need people to start expressing this, and we need political leadership to start doing it and creating that vision and opportunity.
Yeah, the reality is it gets moved pretty far down the priority list for our cities. And so hearing the city representatives hearing from people saying we want this is going to be, the biggest bang for your buck as far as impact. But Waterfront Partnership we have our oyster gardens, which we use as an educational tool to connect people to the water. So why do we need oysters? What happened to them? How can we bring them back? And then just learning more about biodiversity in the harbor and in the Chesapeake Bay and how oysters contribute to that as well as water quality. And we have wildlife gardening, which talks about native plants. So we do a lot to try to connect people in the watershed to the bodies of water that we're trying to improve.
Yeah, and since Allison mentioned, I did want to mention we have a 50 million mussel project since we're freshwater, and we've put 30,000 mussels back into the river just in the past 2 years. So that's a program we're really proud of. And mussels, oysters, they're important filter feeders. They help clean up water. Mussels about 25 gallons a day. An oyster can filter about 50 gallons of water a day. So these are really, really important. And it absorbs the nutrients into their shells and helps them grow. So just incredible little, filter feeders that we need to restore back if we're going to have healthy waterways.
And Dean, question for you about potential partnerships with Anacostia Riverkeeper or Rock Creek Conservancy. Are those groups you engage with?
Yeah, both of them. Anacostia Riverkeeper does water quality monitoring like us. They're trying to have swim events like us. Unfortunately, they've had some really bad luck and some rain events leading up, which have canceled their events like 3 or 4 times. So again, that just only perpetuates that negative perception. But I still think the commitment is there to keep doing that. Rock Creek has been part of our water quality monitoring program. We sample in Rock Creek in partnership with them. So yeah, we have some good partnerships there too.
Great. Next question is if SSOs from rain are a main cause for non-swimmable conditions in Maryland, is there much that can be done to improve the consistency any further?
From Baltimore's perspective, it's just stormwater runoff. It's not even necessarily an SSO that is leading to these bacteria spikes. So I guess that's my answer is it's rain, not just SSOs for Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so there's SSOs, sanitary sewer overflows, and there's CSOs, combined sewer overflows. We have combined sewer systems, both Alexandria and DC, and basically every time it rains, about 50 to 60 times a year, these sewer overflows happen. And so that's why our Swimmable Potomac campaign, in addition to lifting the swim ban and doing water quality monitoring, has been very targeted at fixing both of those systems and making sure that the DC and Alexandria stay on track. And Alexandria's, for example, is a $615 million clean water investment. DC's is billions. It's the largest infrastructure project they've done since the metro system. So major, major investments in clean water. But that's what it takes if we're really going to have swimmable waterways. And so there's been a lot of investments in Baltimore as well with their the backwater plant, and there's been a lot of problems, but slowly but surely, I'm really proud of our Baltimore Harbor Waterkeeper, who's done a lot of work to fix those aging infrastructure projects. But once they're fixed, they last 50, 60, 70 years. And that's really, really important for improving water quality in these waterways.
Yeah, Baltimore only has 2 structured overflows that are slated to be closed, I think 2030-ish.
And just to give you a quick example, the Anacostia Tunnel and the Northeast Tunnel have been fixed. So the combined sewer systems, they did not have a single combined sewer overflow in the Anacostia River last year.
Wow.
As a result of those fixes. As to where still in Potomac, we're seeing, 50, 60 per year from both Alexandria and DC. But that's why fixing those is so vitally important.
Wow. And Dean, you sort of alluded to this in your comments already, but question about, has anyone done an assessment of economic impact of improving recreational water quality, and could that be an incentive for keeping to work towards these swimmable urban areas?
You're talking I mean, I would love that, but we're a pretty small organization with 12 people. But I've thought about that, like, the economics of having clean water. But we know when we make investments in clean water, we see it all over the world. And that's why the Swimmable Cities initiative is so cool, right? Is that it's really showing that if you fix your rivers and start cleaning them up and make those investments and start pulling all the nasty, industrial crap and toxic discharges away from the river, like the revitalization almost happens on its own, and it starts coming back. Yes, there needs to be a comp plan, but it's just making those investments and commitments. And we see it all over the country, like I remember Chattanooga, Tennessee, right? They said, we're getting rid of all this industry, we're going to make investments and bring people back to the river. And it's led to an economic boom. And so I would love to see an economic analysis like this. I'm sure Allison would too.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, we've seen water sport outfitters pop up around the harbor where we're talking about water recreation, when we're visualizing the blue way, getting people out there, seeing more people out there is bringing more people. So that would be a very good tool, very helpful tool to have.
Help us find it.
We'll put that
Help
on
us
the
find the
list, right?
resources to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it would be an interesting topic. The Chesapeake Bay program often puts together a science needs database, and economics is an important science, and we're learning more and more how it's vital to incorporate these social sciences. So maybe we'll forward this for their list of needs.
Yeah.
That'd be
Or
great.
some university, I'm
Yeah,
sure could do it too if
make a
they
great project.
did it to it.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up our time, I want to give you each, Allison and Dean, the opportunity to leave our attendees with any, key messages that you really want them to leave with today. So, Allison, why don't we start with you and then we'll go to Dean.
Yeah, I think my overall takeaway from this swimmable movement is swimming is fun. Like, it is good for people, it's good for your mind, your body, your soul, and we should be able to recreate in the waters we live by. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. Just really, we're just trying to find ways to connect people to the river. I always call it building community around clean water. That's what we do with our trash cleanups, our water quality monitoring. And if you want to come out on the river, we have some amazing trips through Riverpalooza 2025. Please come join us, come learn about what we're doing. And then, if you're in the DC region or in the Potomac watershed, please get involved with Potomac Riverkeeper Network. We'd love to have you as a member and supporter and someone who's advocating for the clean water in swimmable cities.
Great. Thank you again to both of you, Allison and Dean. It's been great to have you here today, and I've really enjoyed digging into this subject matter that's just so timely and critically important. If you had submitted a question and yours didn't get answered, we will follow up with our speakers and give them an opportunity to share any thoughts on those questions, and then we'll send that information as well as any of the resources shared today in a follow-up email after this webinar. So thank you again to all of our speakers and attendees, and we hope to see you all next month, August 20th, for our next roundtable discussion.